Number 5 on this list is danger. Maybe this number on the list would be better titled risk versus reward, honestly, because that's basically what it boils down to. Space travel is by far the most dangerous form of travel that we have. Like, everyone has heard someone tell them before that whenever you get in a car, you are taking a risk, which is true. You could get in a car accident at any point in time. But a lot of times, those car accidents result in little fender benders, and for the most part, nothing major. If your space shuttle breaks down though, like even if a tiny little thing goes wrong, then that is very likely the end of your entire existence. And obviously, we've seen this happen before. Several space shuttles have exploded or malfunctioned, and astronauts have in fact died because of it. There's always going to be an immense danger when someone steps into a space shuttle, and they're going to be risking their lives. Now, if the reward was incredible, then it might be worth it, but as we're going to talk about later in this video, the reward might not be that great. Like, at the end of the day, I truly don't think that I would be willing to go to space. I have the utmost respect for those who do decide to do it, but I just don't know if it's for me. The danger is just a bit too high. Number 4 on this list is aliens. Aliens, although unlikely, need to be considered when determining whether or not to go to space or not. If there is a risk that we could run into aliens and in the process of doing so, piss those aliens off, then that would really not be very good for any of us. There have been tons of stories about aliens and the possibility of them being out in the universe at this point. In fact, I think it's pretty much an accepted belief that if the universe is infinite, then there has to be life somewhere else in the universe. But it could be closer than you think. One famous story is that of the knock. Tanya Sirohi writes, "First off, there's no sound in space. There's only vacuum. And this is precisely what makes this story a strange one. Back in 2003, astronaut Yang Liwei, the first to be sent into space by the Chinese space program, was sitting in his space shuttle when he reportedly heard a knock. He described it as someone knocking the body of the spaceship, just as knocking an iron bucket with a wooden hammer would sound. Apparently, he's not the only one to have experienced this. There were other Chinese astronauts between 2005 and 2008 who've reported hearing similar sounds. A lot of people have heard this story and credited it to being aliens. A lot of people have heard this story and credited it to being aliens that caused the sound. If that's the case, then it's something NASA really needs to consider if they ever want to go to space again. Number 3 on this list is space snakes. Now, I'm gonna be honest, guys, this one is just kind of silly, but I honestly just wanted to throw it in here because it really does make for a good story. And let's face it, if this story is actually true and it's all real, then I also would think twice about making another mission to space as well. Tanya Sirohi says, retired NASA astronaut Dr. Story Musgrave has a lot to his credit. So it would be difficult to pass this off as a lie, but he claims he saw an 8-foot-long white snake floating through space. It's not hard to imagine that this could have been a hose detached from the spaceship, but Musgrave, he remains adamant. So once again, folks, I want to reiterate that this is a bit of a silly entry, but if we suspend our disbelief for just 1 second, then it gets pretty terrifying pretty quickly. If there is actually just a bunch of giant white snakes floating through space, then I don't know if there's actually a large enough sum of money that you could pay me to go and fly into that. Also, who knows what these things would even be capable of? Maybe they're super smart and we just have no idea. I, for one, do not want to be the person having to find that out. Number 2 on this list is Elon Musk. So I entitled this entry Elon Musk, but ultimately it's just billionaires in general at this point. For some reason, it's not enough for these guys with billions of dollars to just own some fancy cars and yachts. No, they need to have their own fancy rocket ships as well. And they've made it their mission to fly to space in some capacity and do it before all of the other billionaires do it. Well, guess what? This is good news for NASA. SpaceX was founded in 2002 by Elon Musk. Google says Space Exploration Technologies Corp. is an American spacecraft manufacturer, space launch provider, and a satellite communications corporation headquartered in Hawthorne, California. It was founded in 2002 by Elon Musk with the goal of reducing space transportation costs to enable the colonization of Mars. NASA is probably loving the sound of that last bit there. Reducing space transportation costs? At the end of the day, NASA's whole mission isn't to worry about costs and other things. It's research. They want to research space and learn more about it. If I'm NASA, then I'm looking over at Elon Musk and thinking that this guy might be a really nice guy to get close to. Let Elon Musk do all the work and fit the bill of going to space, and you can tag along for the ride and complete your mission of researching stuff along the way. If someone else is going to do all the legwork for me, then it honestly just makes sense that I sit back and strap in for the ride. Billionaires, for whatever reason, have decided that they want to take the reins on this one, and I think NASA is happy to let them. And number one on this list is money. Even NASA, one of the richest organizations in the world and a group that is tackling problems such as space travel, runs into money problems. At the end of the day, our society is built on the back of the mighty dollar, and if you don't have enough of said dollars, then you're not going to be able to do what you want to do. Every time NASA launches a space shuttle to go into space, literally every single time, that is going to cost $450 million. That's just one space shuttle going on one single mission. Now, $450 million is a lot of money, but to a big corporation, that could be considered chump change if you think about it. McDonald's, for instance, is thought to spend over $1 billion every year on advertising in the United States alone. That's just on advertising, let alone all the money they spend on the actual product and labor and transportation and everything that goes into making their business run. However, McDonald's makes a lot of money off of those advertisements. They pump the money into silly commercials, and we pump our money into poorly made burgers. This sort of business model doesn't really translate to space travel though. At the end of the day, $450 million is nothing if that $450 million is being spent on an operation that could bring in $1 billion, let's say. But in this case, that $450 million isn't being spent on that. That money is being spent, and then they aren't getting any of it back. There aren't any McDonald's in space, and there isn't any willing customers to spend money on stuff up there. In fact, there really isn't anything there at all. Throughout history, people go where the money is. Usually, it doesn't even matter how dangerous things are. Mining for oil or coal was extremely dangerous back in the early days, but there was a lot of money in it, and therefore people did it. There just simply is not a lot of money currently to be found in space. If, for instance, someone discovered a rare and valuable mineral or rock that's sitting on the moon and it was something that people would pay lots of money for, then I guarantee NASA would be up and running and sending tons of space shuttles to the moon. I think maybe the thing that's so unsettling about this is that we could be missing out on tons of human progress, but money is holding us back. Like, maybe there are some really important things to be learned in space that we could be learning about right now if money wasn't a factor. Hopefully somebody is ready to fork over the big bucks soon and we can get some people back up in the air.
Number 5. ISS UAP. In 2019, 35-year-old Russian astronaut Ivan Wagner was working aboard the ISS as a first-time crew member, where he and fellow Russian Anatoly Ivanishin are working with Chris Cassidy, the American commander of the expedition. NASA didn't mention Wagner's video in a blog update about the mission and hasn't since, which makes this case a little fishy. Wagner was orbiting the Earth aboard the ISS and might have actually captured footage of potential UFOs, or better known now as UAPs, while recording a video of the aurora lights behind the Earth's beautiful curves. He labeled the video "Space Guests" or "How I Filmed the New Time Lapse." Very cryptic. I mean, he is Russian. Wagner wrote in a tweet featuring the video which shows the aurora australis passing near Antarctica and Australia. He also tweeted, quote, "However, in the video you will see something else, not only the aurora. The footage shows the curved edge of the Earth at night, with the green swirl of the auroras moving across its surface and several star pinpoints visible in the background." He added that the video was shot in a time lapse, so the brief flash of the lights actually lasted for about 52 seconds straight in real time. Yo, I'm the alien guy, so I'm just gonna say it. Yeah, that's a craft. Like, of course it is. NASA didn't follow up? Like, what are they gonna say? Yeah, that's swamp gas, birds, balloons. Cut the feed! Cut the feed! Like, this is nuts. I get how Starlink and satellites are very organized and look like this, but like, come on. Shot from way up there. Wagner did not claim to see the phenomenon as it happened, of course. Good choice. And no one else aboard the ISS has acknowledged it. Also, good choice. Yeah, I bet they haven't. Like, why would you? You know? He also didn't indicate exactly when the footage was captured. Just posted 6:24 a.m. August 19th, 2020. Number 4, the original tapes. Also, dudes, if you like what we do here, just keep creeping you out. You know, Hulk smash that like button. It always helps the channel out. And of course, let me know down below in the comments section what other UAP videos you got for me. You know I love that smoke. Send her over my way. I got some good ones coming up from my vault. What do you think? Are we alone out there or what? You know my opinion. Especially since I found out the footage our parents and also 650 million people across the globe watched in 1969 was maybe not the original footage. Huh? Yeah, apparently what everyone saw on every television set across the globe wasn't as 4K as it was on NASA's end. A man by the name of Gary George has come across some very, very old tapes that might have been proof of what NASA was seeing. What we saw were a little bit different. Gary George, internship NASA engineer team, he bought surplus government tapes for 218 bucks, discovered originally 3 recordings, labeled Apollo 11 EVA, auctioned at Sotheby's, first generation on the moonwalk. It's even cleaner than what's been seen before. It's like a live HD stream to NASA. Okay, so hold on. NASA had a clearer copy this whole time? Like, I get it. Maybe they had a bigger budget, you know, but why did it take so long for these clearer tapes to come out? Like, it's 2019. That's a long time after just accidentally stumble across clear moon landing tapes, no? Like, why was NASA content on only letting us see these grainy, old recorded from a static TV videos when they had these HD B-reels of the moon? I'm thinking so that we can't see what's in the background or what's flying around at them. I don't see a lot of stars in that video. I wonder how long it'll take before Robert Bigelow or Tom DeLonge to get their hands on them, huh? Unfiltered, clean moon tapes. That's gonna cost you. I wonder what else is stuffed in an old box in NASA's basement. I guess we'll find out. Number 3, lost in space. During the 60s, the space race was on between the Americans and the Russians. A race to be the first to figure out what it is to put something or someone up above the clouds in a little metal box to just go and explore planets. Yeah. Although today we tend to look back at the space race with the Soviet Union as a competition we were destined to win, it was actually the Soviets that secured many of the early victories. American officials at the time weren't only worried about Soviet prestige winning out, they had very real concerns about Soviet space dominating and providing them an ultimate high ground in the next global conflict. While NASA's efforts were widely publicized, but sometimes the Soviets made it a point to never really announce a space mission until days after it was completed. Apparently this allowed them to maintain control over information sharing, oddly only the missions that went well, and maybe not all those failed tests also. The Giudica Cordiglia brothers from Italy were former amateur radio operators who apparently caught some homemade home audio recordings which allegedly proves the Soviet space race covered up some cosmonauts' deaths in the 1960s during trial and error. Yeah. Yeah, that's horrifying. Apparently she's saying, "Help, help, I feel hot." Where? Yes, I can. On the left, I see fire. Am I going to crash? Yo, that's horrifying and also really sad. I mean, NASA and the Soviets both launched animals into space that, sorry to say, spoiler alert, never really came home. Dogs, monkeys, lots of weird stuff happened in the early days of NASA. NASA also hasn't issued a statement since the audio recordings have made waves on the internet, but if the two brothers with an antenna and headphones in a basement can pick that up, What's NASA heard and recorded, huh? Number 2, The Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, not just an absolute banger of an album by Pink Floyd, but also the most terrifying and mysterious places in our galaxy. The Dark Side of the Moon. NASA apparently does hear some pretty weird stuff in its time. Since its erection in the late 50s, the engineers, computer whizzes, and astronauts have all seen and heard some pretty weird stuff. Yeah, they sign non-disclosures, people. They can't really talk about anything. Buzz Aldrin is the only one who kind of dances on the line of non-disclosure and who gives a shit. You know what I mean? But he's old. So what exactly did the Apollo 10 astronauts hear when they were on the far side of the moon that NASA can't talk about and still can't? I mean, 1969 was a great time for tunes, right? Just hopefully not alien tunes. Despite what you may have heard, it's true that the Apollo 10 astronauts heard strange sounds behind the moon. They described it as outer space type music. But that's a very simple non-alien explanation for what crew members were hearing, and it's been public knowledge since the 70s. In the audio recordings from the Apollo 10 mission, astronaut Gene Cernan, who was piloting the lunar module, asks John Young, who was piloting the command module, if he hears that whistling sound. Cernan calls it music and says it even sounds outer spacey. Finally, Young says, "We're gonna have to find out about that. Nobody will believe us."
Whistling sound? Yeah.
Woo!
Look at your... Yeah, it sounds like, outer space type music.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying. Apparently we were on the other side of the moon for like a whole hour without command being able to hear or communicate to respond. That's terrifying. You wonder why we never hear anything about the other side of the moon, huh? I wonder what's back there. And number 1, Bullseye. NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, spacecraft has just beamed back the first image of its targets. The mini-moon Dimorphos, as well as its rock formation Titanus body it orbits, the asteroid Didymos. Yeah, I kinda knew about this way back when they kept it low, like really low. Kinda just happened out of nowhere. DART is a planetary defense test mission designed to impact the moonlet to alter its trajectory around Didymos, basically to catch you all up to speed here. If you've seen Armageddon, it's kinda where we're getting with this. The DART mission was launched at 10:20 p.m. on November 23rd, 2021, back during the pandemic. I watched this thing go up without any NASA pre-mission statement and I thought, that can't be good. SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the Space Launch Complex 4 at the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, that's a mouthful, launched this puppy up into space to kind of give the moon a little nudge. Yeah. The spacecraft is scheduled to arrive at its target in late September 2022, and according to NASA officials, which as of yesterday are right on schedule. The spacecraft has now captured the first images of its double target asteroid anomaly, which includes the moonlet it will crash into called Dimorphos, spinning around the asteroid called Didymos. Once it's slammed into Dimorphos, NASA will make observations of the asteroid from Earth to discern whether the spacecraft was able to alter the asteroid's trajectory or not. Yeah, basically, if it does, that means the method can be used to avert potentially hazardous asteroids on a collision course with Earth. If it doesn't, well, we gotta call our alien buddies for a ride, you know? If proven effective, this spacecraft design could potentially be scaled up to deflect an Earth-bound asteroid. The spacecraft is still 20 million miles away from the asteroids at the point of this picture, so they appear a little indistinguishable. Looks like a little star. NASA will live stream the impact event later this month, apparently. Hopefully with some 4K live NASA, not this grainy film stuff we're used to seeing. The space agency announced live coverage of the DART impact would begin at 6 p.m. on September 26th. It will air live on NASA TV. Hey, I've seen Armageddon. I know what's up. I'm sorry, AJ. You go take care of my little girl. Gets me every time. It's a great movie, great movie. Number 5, Space Camp. Starting this list off, we arrive at the Apollo 8 mission. Well, 7 other missions before it, but it was a little rocky back then, you know? The early days. But Apollo 8 was the first fully crewed spacecraft to leave low Earth orbit and the first human spaceflight to reach the moon. Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders, aka the crew, orbited the moon 10 times without landing. December 21st, 1968. The Apollo 8 astronauts returned to Earth on December 27th, 1968. Now, here's the scary part. Apparently, while they were up there, they claimed to have seen some pretty strange stuff. Some weird lights, glowing moving balls, and apparently bonfires all over the moon. What? Yeah, apparently the men said it looked like smoke and small bonfires when visiting the far side of the moon. When the capsule passed behind the moon for 45 minutes, the crew claimed to have seen multiple lights coming from the surface. And thankfully, NASA even transcribed what they heard. Borman says, bonfires. Anders says campfires. All in all, we have astronauts puzzled at what they're seeing. 7 months later, Apollo 11 is performing a mission orbiting the moon and captures apparently a bunch of things that are out of the ordinary. Buzz and Collins both claim to have seen things like lava flowing, aliens parked on craters, to even small bonfires and flickers on the surface. Of course, there's no oxygen on the moon, so what could have caused the fire and the smoke? Number 4, air buds. As always, dudes, if you dig what we do here on Top 5 Scary, hit that thumbs up button or leave a comment down below. It really helps us out. What's the biggest NASA secret you know of? Let me know down below. I'll check it out. When we think about astronauts that have spent their fair share up in space, we can't forget the experiments in the early stages of both the Soviets and the American space programs. It truly was a race, pushing the limits faster and faster, bigger and bolder kind of stuff, and with that omelet comes a couple broken eggs. We often forget that NASA has sent its fair share of animals up there as well, and of course, unfortunately, not many of them have returned back to us. Yeah, very sad. Science is one of those things where its benefits are tremendous, but the hypothesis parts sometimes are a little dark and grim. We remember Laika, the space dog, and her 103-minute cosmic journey aboard Sputnik 2, but let's not forget the infamous Able and Baker. This was the American version of Laika. Only a year later, too. 1959, the United States launched one female rhesus monkey named Able and one female squirrel monkey named Baker into space. This mission lasted only 15 minutes, and they both safely returned back home. Their predecessors, not so lucky. See, a couple of animals have yet to return from their space mission. Mice, geckos, dogs. It was a different time. To announce their successful flight, NASA unveiled Able and Baker to journalists in the same room where just a month prior, they had introduced the Mercury 7 crew as the country's first human astronauts. Big jumps, right? Sadly, after the training and missions, both animals passed. But you can visit them at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum where they're both on display. A little dark and grim, but we pay homage. Number 3, Valkyrie. NASA has been experimenting with a little bit more tech in the last 20 years. A little bit more robotics instead of fitting humans into a capsule. Seems like this next project has been in the works for some years, but under silent lock and key until recent years. Valkyrie is the name of the NASA's new semi-secretive AI project. Taken from Norse mythology, Valkyrie is designed to be a robust, rugged, and entirely electric humanoid robot capable of operating in degraded or damaged human-engineered environments. The NASA R5, aka Valkyrie, is the size of a full human adult with a 7-digit price tag, putting it a little bit more expensive than the very terrestrial Tesla bot. This robot was originally built for the 2013 DARPA Robotics Challenge. The 6-foot, 300-pound piece of machinery represents the future of space exploration. It's the first step towards a goal of human colonization on Mars and other planets in our solar system. Dude, this is nuts! High hopes for the robot. However, currently tethered to the ceiling of a warehouse in Lowell, Massachusetts. Oh. The Lowell model is one of 4 units produced by NASA. The space agency held on to one robot for its own purposes and awarded 2 to the research of Northwestern and MIT, while the 4th lives in Scotland's University of Edinburgh. The 4 models are being tinkered and tailored on as we speak. Long story short, we've reached a peak in space travel where maybe living things don't have to make it or break it anymore. To reduce hazards and prevent any more life being lost or altered for science, the Valkyrie is an option for NASA to search very hazardous environments while keeping a pretty safe distance while doing so. Number 2, ice cold. We all know about Jupiter's moon Europa. I was like 18 when I found out about all the planets' moons in our solar system. Yeah, did you know that Jupiter has 79 moons? Like 79. Yeah, we have 1. Like, we know nothing, Jon Snow. Well, maybe we know something, because apparently we found traces of water on a couple different rocks now. Europa, the 6th largest moon in our solar system. It was discovered in 1610, and ever since then, we've kind of wondered what's on it. In 1979, the 2 Voyager spacecrafts passed through the Jovian system, providing the first hints that Europa may contain liquid water. The ground-based telescopes on Earth, along with the Galileo spacecraft and telescopes, have increased scientists' confidence for a European ocean. Yeah, cue NASA's SESAME program, Scientific Exploration Subsurface Access Mechanism for Europa. SESAME will not drill, however, but actually thaw its way under the icy ocean, and from there will operate small probes to conduct an array of research on biology, sediment, gases, and of course what we're all hoping for, humanoid mermaid-looking aliens. However, the part that really has NASA's attention is all the tectonic activity beneath said icy shelf, meaning that somewhere in the middle, there's warm water flowing under with currents. Yeah, creepy. In 2011, NASA awarded Stone Aerospace $4 million to fund Phase 2 of Project Sesame. Phase 2 of the project consisted of testing the cryobot in Alaska in 2015. Phase 3 of the project will use a swarm of tiny robots the size of cell phones to whisk through the water beneath the thick icy shelf of Jupiter's moon looking for evidence of alien life. The tiny robots would be released underwater, swimming far from their mothership to explore a new world. Basically, the cryobot melts its way through the subglacial lake, collects samples, resurfaces, and comes back home. Yeah, seems like an alien movie plot just ready for scripting, huh? And number 1, Artemis 1. So we haven't been back to the moon since 1972, but why? Well folks, we're going back. And soon, like 2 weeks soon. Yeah, I didn't know either, as I'm a millennial who doesn't watch the news on TV. We're going back to the moon, people, but not the Apollo program anymore. No, we've changed the name to another Greek name. They're twin, Artemis. Apparently, Artemis 1 will be the first in a series of increasingly complex missions to build a long-term human presence on the moon for decades to come. Oh yeah, we're staying, like building forts and stuff. The primary goals for Artemis 1 are to demonstrate Orion's systems in a spaceflight environment and to ensure a safe re-entry, descent, splashdown, and recovery. Basically like the full shebang. Yeah, not taking any more risks, huh NASA? Safety first kind of deal, I like it. Not a long mission too. September 27th they're supposed to launch, and splash back down here in November, like 38 days long. Nice little quick one. And then re-evaluate and select the people. Yeah, dude, this is sick. I'm down with Phase 2 space stuff, you know? Like, let's get that robot up there.